Alrighty, here we go. I'm gonna try to make this quick today. I've been really trying to cut back on these videos in terms of the length of time. I think I'm losing people on the views, but that's okay. What we got today is talking about sports and why the sport itself doesn't make you stronger or faster, in my humble opinion. So let's dive in right away. I'm gonna give out a couple examples here, kind of why they don't work to kind of get you stronger or faster, what the risk is kind of involved there, and why training is kind of really the only solution. But it's not as hard as you might think, and we'll get into that in a sec. So first and foremost, all right, if we take any skill or sporting activity, right, hitting a baseball, throwing a softball, hitting a volleyball, kicking a soccer ball, shooting a basketball, working on layups, whatever it is, okay? People often say they do that activity to get stronger at it. But what I would argue is that you're not necessarily getting stronger at it, is you're developing more power, or you're utilizing power, and you're building endurance, okay? And so power is your ability to show your strength, or how quickly you can show your strength. And endurance is just that. I mean, endurance is pretty common vernacular. You can build endurance in activity through repetition, right? So a repeated activity is going to go ahead and it's going to give you a better ability to maintain and do that activity over long periods of time. Those aren't bad things. Those are actually really good things most of the time. The issue lies in is when people think that it's going to develop strength, which is the ability to kind of produce force, okay? And so because there's no resistance involved in most of those activities, and you can do them repetitively, the issue becomes then that you're not actually developing any strength by doing them. So therefore, the power that you're using and the endurance is stunted, because strength is the foundation of pretty much all athletic endeavors. So the stronger you are, I would argue the more quickly you could display that strength, and the more powerful you could become, and the more power you have, the more or strength you have, I should say. Each repetition will be stronger. Therefore, your endurance builds up at a higher level because the quality is usually higher. So when people come in saying, "Oh, I throw to build arm strength, I hit to build arm strength, or I kick a soccer ball to build leg strength," it's just scientifically not correct. So that's kind of the problem I see a lot of the times. But secondarily to that is what happens is these people come in, they'll train really hard in the off season, and it's like almost really sad to see, because these people will work their butts off, but then when they go to the season, it kind of stops, like drastically. So you go 2, 3, 4, 5 days a week of training in the off season, then you step in to the season and it disappears. And I mean, if you look at the research, within 30 days, you will start to lose pretty much all of what you've worked for, if you don't keep it involved in your lifestyle in some semblance. So what people are doing is they're working incredibly hard in the off season. Then they come back in and basically lose everything once they get about a month into the season. And then that's why we see kind of typically, if you watch any season progress towards the end of the year, injuries run rampant, performance decreases. You see kind of just mental errors late in games and stuff like that, because they're just not at their best. And so what I would argue, and what I honestly more like what I would kind of tell people to do is training needs to be thought of as a process, but not an outcome. Because when you do this to get this, you eventually lose this throughout the season, okay? And that basically meaning I'm going to train to get better. Once I get better, I'm going to stop and play at that level, but it's really, you don't stay at that level. Whereas a process-minded individual keeps a dose of strength training or just performance training in general as a piece of the puzzle, right? And so the most successful athletes, and even pretty much every pro or college organization that performs at a decently high level, will have an in-season program verbatim, because it's that important. And the goal there isn't the same as the offseason. You're not looking to necessarily improve, although you can, especially with young athletes, and we've done it here for years. But the goal is to maintain and protect. And so I always tell a kid, like, protect the asset, right? Your body is the asset. We need to protect the asset. Like, you come in here, we are looking to make you feel better leaving than you did when you come in. And that's the goal of an in-season program. And the nice thing about this is you really don't have to do that much. Like, I've seen kids have great success with just one session a week. Little more advanced people who have been doing this for a few years, usually twice a week is more than enough to get them by 2. So it doesn't take much, but the problem lies is when it's just not there at all. The issue usually is like a scheduling thing, right? Like, you're not able to get your kid to a place to train because you're practicing and playing every single day. But I would argue a good friend, not a good friend of mine, but a good mentor I kind of look up to. He said, greatness and convenience rarely live on the same street. And meaning you will kind of have to go out of your way to make some of the stuff work in the season. But is it worth in the long term? That just kind of depends on what your goal is as an athlete, or what your child's goal is, and what you're looking to accomplish for them in the long term. My goal here is just to put out some education, some information, not to necessarily ruffle up feathers or call you out for being lazy during the season. But if you have additional questions, please feel free to kind of hit me up here. Would love to talk more about this. This is something I am a huge believer on. All my probably most successful athletes that I've gotten to work with, and kind of been blessed to work with some really talented individuals, they've kept training kind of within the scope of their year for years at a time. And I think that's kind of ultimately what allows them to kind of accumulate success over the long haul. So hopefully that was helpful. You guys got questions, please feel free to email me, shoot me a direct message. Be happy to answer any questions. Other than that, have a great weekend. See ya.